News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin with the latest from the Middle East. The U.S. and Iran are showing little signs of progress in ceasefire talks after one of the worst bursts of violence in the region in weeks. President Trump says negotiations are in the final stages, but Iran's foreign minister says there's been no tangible progress. The president says time is on his side.
When you look at hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed in these various wars, they lasted many, many years. We're in there for a few months, and what we've done is amazing.
President Trump spoke from the Oval Office. Meanwhile, Iran-backed Hezbollah has rejected a U.S.-brokered ceasefire in Lebanon. Bloomberg's Zabir Abu Omar reports that's adding further complication to the peace process.
The hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah continue within the southern part of Lebanon, but also the northern parts in Israel. President Trump, on the other hand, has said that he did not see the rejection from Hezbollah. And as a matter of fact, he's been in touch with representatives who told the president that they wanted to have the ceasefire.
Bloomberg's Zabir Abu Omar reports Israeli strikes in Lebanon have killed at least 8 people, according to the Lebanese health ministry. Israel says Hezbollah fired several rockets at its soldiers, but no one was hurt.
We have breaking news on Capitol Hill this morning, Nathan. The Senate has passed a $69.5 billion bill that gives more than 3 years of funding to 2 immigration enforcement agencies. The measure passed 52-47 after a marathon vote that saw Democrats try to corner Republicans on politically tricky amendment votes. The bill passed the Senate after weeks of negotiations over funding for the Secret Service to secure President Trump's ballroom. That money was ultimately dropped from the package, but drew rebuke from 7 Republican senators. Republicans also stripped out funds for the Justice Department that got bogged down by concerns about a now-defunct fund to compensate victims of alleged politically motivated prosecution.
Also on Capitol Hill, Karen, the House has approved a new round of aid to Ukraine and sanctions on Russia in a backhanded rebuke of President Trump's foreign policy.
The ayes are 226. The nays are 195. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
House Democrats forced to vote on the package through what's known as a discharge petition. That's a procedural tool that Republican leaders oppose. President Trump's raised questions about the cost of assisting Ukraine in its defense against Russia's invasion. That's put him at odds with moderate Republicans who signed the petition and joined with Democrats in advancing the bill.
Meanwhile, Nathan, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is proposing direct peace talks with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in an effort to end the war. He did so in a rare and combative open letter. Ben Sills is Bloomberg's managing editor for European politics and economy.
This is not a letter which is going to persuade Putin to come to the negotiating table. The tone of it is so incredibly assertive. I read it last night when it dropped, and I was really quite struck by just how self-confident Zelenskyy sounds and how he's talking down to Putin. He's talking about how his drones hit St. Petersburg yesterday, the day before Putin turns up. He's threatening to hit other Russian targets deep inside Russia. He's saying that he knows Putin is afraid of Ukraine's military potential. So that's no way to bring Putin to the negotiating table.
And Bloomberg's Ben Sills says Zelenskyy is proposing a face-to-face meeting in a neutral country. A Russian spokesman says if Zelenskyy wants to meet Putin, he can come to Moscow.
Well, turning back to Washington now, Karen, Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte has been named acting director of national intelligence, but President Trump says that appointment will be temporary. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from the nation's capital.
President Trump says FHFA's Bill Pulte will not become the permanent director of national intelligence.
He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. But it's somebody just to take it over for a little while.
President Trump says they're interviewing people for that permanent position. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. We turn to the markets where the S&P 500's historic weekly run of gains is in jeopardy. Right now, the AI euphoria is fading as tech shares lead equity futures lower. Slide today would mean the S&P 500 misses out on a 10th week of gains, which would have been the longest such streak since 1985. In Asia, South Korea's KOSPI, the world's best performing gauge this year, and a bellwether for AI investments, dropped 5.5%.
Well, this morning, Karen, investors are awaiting the jobs report for for the month of May. It's expected to show an increase of 89,000 non-farm payrolls and an unchanged employment rate of 4.3%. San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly says there's too much uncertainty in the economy to offer a view on where rates are headed. We spoke to Daly at the Bloomberg Tech Conference in San Francisco.
We are prepared to respond either way, whatever the economy brings. But I think giving more forward guidance about what's possible could be misguiding in the end, because we just have to wait for the economy to evolve. Everybody wants to resolve the uncertainty today, but I think that's a mistake, because it will close off our mind about what we really have to look at.
You catch our full interview with Mary Daly and others from the Bloomberg Tech Conference in San Francisco on the Bloomberg Business app and at Bloomberg.com.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.